Episode 46. This week we're talking about TV tennis.
TV tennis. Beginning for me, I think back in 1975, 76, 77, the U.S. Open, before it shifted over to Flushing Meadows, they switched from grass to American Hard-True with a green clay.
Yeah.
And throughout the summer, there was a final every Monday night. I can remember Arthur Ashe, Jimmy Connors' 1975 Wimbledon final, tape delayed. But when those matches were on Monday night, the finals, they were on PBS. There used to be three stations, NBC, ABC, CBS, and then PBS. And PBS had 1 minute tapes produced by Vic Braden.
Yeah.
But really, without TV, first things first, thank you. Can you imagine if we didn't have TV? So you might make a few comments about
TV's nice.
About television tennis, but thank you.
Yeah.
I can remember when people listen to sporting events on radio. I know my son Connor played. There's a few times where he's playing a challenger.
Yeah.
And listen to the match.
Well, now they have the live streaming and everything that you get, a challenger match.
But sometimes sometimes the live streaming was just with sound.
Yeah.
On the downside, little or no doubles, little or no junior tennis being shown.
Yeah.
I think the college tennis, where they just showed the team final in the Tennis Channel, I think that was great. I think the placement of the camera is important to point out. The camera is shooting from up above. Makes it very distorted, creates optical problems. The trajectory of ground strokes, I think the Joe Public, we think that the players are hitting lasers because of the angle of the camera.
Yeah, misleading.
The trajectory is misread. The player is about, obviously the size of a TV varies, but the player is about the size of your smallest finger. Ball is about the size of a fingernail. I think also, too, the human eye sees 24 frames per second related to camera. I don't think they show enough slow motion. Commentating, Howard Cosell, the legendary sportscaster, the prophet of the obvious. But I do think the question mark, is it educational? It's definitely entertaining, and that's important.
Yeah.
Definitely entertaining. It could be more educating. The X's and O's. I mean, it's not soccer, it's not football where there's 22 people on the field. Where did everybody go? What just happened in that play? I do think there's more of an emphasis on tactics and technique. But again, more information shared on tactics. So we call it, tactics, the X's and O's, and nuts and bolts, the technical side. I do think there's even less technical information. Then the question can be no information versus bad information.
Yeah, or misinformation.
Yeah, grip, swing, body. Jim Verdick. We talked about Jim in one of our podcasts, one of our pillars. We got one more to go. We covered 7 of the 8. We still need to cover Vic Braden here in our first year with podcasts. But Jim was so dedicated. He would sit and he would chart matches. Now, we tell our juniors, have a clipboard by the TV and just chart 20.
20 points.
Yeah, 10 serves, 10 returns.
Not 20 matches, 20 points.
Yeah, but again, to get them to even chart their own matches, you chart to get the objective data on how to structure practice.
Yeah.
You think about TV tennis, but then also just tennis. 2 types of talk. There's small talk versus fact-finding. You can hear the bleacher talk. You can hear the buzz. I do think that many times it's the change of coach or they've changed where they're training.
Wow, look at that new Nike outfit.
Yes. I've watched tennis in other countries. Certainly, I would have to ask for a translator. I really enjoyed in the past. I mean, it's been some time now watching tennis in England. They used to just give out so much information. You'd even go back as far as telling you how many times the players played each other as juniors. In Canada, I enjoyed listening to Peter Burwash. He was a TV commentator. He's one of our pillars. Generally in tennis, there's no coaches in the booth. Growing up next to Canada, CBC, the Hockey Network. When I was a kid, there was Howie Meeker, and they put forth an effort to teach hockey in between periods. John Madden, football, Don Cherry in hockey as well. But I think both Madden and Cherry really personality rules the day.
Yeah.
Stats, we talked about Bill Jacobson, one of our pillars. Leo Lavin, who started with Bill, recently passed away at a very young age. He was really appreciated by TV commentators because bringing stats to it. Now, Craig O'Shaughnessy, I know that he's done some work on TV. Commentators typically are not that critical.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just cynical, but they're usually too many times just edifying the player, building the player up. But if you pay attention, what happens with a lot of commentators, they end up coaching. So they have access to the top players. And I do think sometimes they're killing it with kindness.
Well, they don't want to rip the top player if they have a chance to coach him. So
yeah, Jimmy Arias.
I think Johnny Mack, he's probably the most critical if I think about the commentators. Where he'll dig in a little bit.
Yeah. I used to tease, the more Johnny Mack says, the less he knows. But that's really true from a ball striking standpoint.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime you can listen to someone with that, background, that competitive mind, the insights are...
Yeah, they're giving me some insights.
Definitely worth looking into. Touring pros, you get on YouTube, and I think Tracy Austin is one of the best. Touring pros, when they're in a setting, a clinical setting, teaching strokes, all you have to do is go to YouTube. And that's not really their forte. Obviously, that's not what they do.
Yeah.
So the celebrity coaches, I think Lendl, I've heard him say many times, I don't do technique.
Yeah.
And so we've covered that before, where
I don't do grips.
You don't want to be pretentious. Yeah, Brad Gilbert. I don't do grips.
I don't do grips. Next question.
It used to be 3 people in the booth. I just think of all the crews over the years, but then it's really been, for the most part, 2. But they'll have somebody courtside.
Yeah, they'll get a guest every once in a while for a couple games.
Yeah, but they're covering more courts, so there's more jobs, especially now with, as you said, streaming matches.
Yeah,
there's more courts to cover. It used to be they would just have commentators for the 2 big courts.
Got some field reporters.
When I was on the Vic Braden staff in California, Vic was on TV as a commentator.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites was the late Bud Collins.
Yeah.
Because he brought history to it. Plus, he had some fun calling everybody a hacker.
Yeah, it's some personality for sure.
Bud actually, he loved Boston so much people thought he was a Bostonian, but he was from Cleveland. I think it was 1963 where he won a mixed doubles title, a national championship. Used to say they had a win over Virginia Wade on bad grass. Virginia won Wimbledon in 77. So Bud really wasn't a hacker. Jimmy Connors, that's one of my favorite stories. When he started commentating, they just say, if you could interview this person, I don't like that person. Interview this person, I don't like that person. Interview this person, I don't like that person. And they finally said, who would you like to interview? He said, Eddie Dibbs.
It's kind of like coaching on the WTA tour. How about practicing with this girl? I don't like her. How about this one? Nah, I don't like her either. Okay.
Eddie Dibbs, the Brooklyn boy who grew up in Miami. Funny guy. One of my favorites was Vitas Gerulaitis. Sadly, he left us at such a young age. But, Arthur Ashe, Pancho Gonzalez, Tony Traber, Donald Dell.
Yeah.
Even, Bjorn Borg and Stan Smith, they did some, but it wasn't, you have Chris Evert, Tracy Austin. You think about it, I think we can criticize, but we're fortunate to have the opportunity to listen to champions. But
some legends, yeah.
I do think the format they don't have that much time in between points. The There was, and I looked into this, and I asked an Italian coach years ago. There was 2 Italians a match would play, and they would be talking about anything and everything, a movie, a Broadway play, fancy restaurant.
Yeah.
Be at the US Open, go, yeah, I went to, and just the match would be playing.
Yeah.
We ran this program called Tennis Tech for tennis teachers, and I can remember we had students who said they wanted to be TV commentators. So during our lab, we created a match, and then we created a booth and a microphone and filmed and recorded. And it's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah, exactly.
To make comments, Johnny on the spot.
It is amazing, though. I got to know Robbie Koenig pretty well.
Yeah.
Over the years, spending so many years at the Indian Wells Masters tournament, and I got to go up in the booth one time, and it is amazing the amount of information that they have, the background information on each player, and then also with, Hawkeye and some of these new technologies where they can get a lot of stats, where it's net clearance and just all kinds of things. So they do have an unbelievable amount of statistics and information going in and just right in front of them as the match is going on. So that does help.
Yeah,
for sure.
At one point, all the pro tournaments played in Texas and a couple in Florida. We provided the stats. We had our connection with Bill Jacobson, the CT 120, the first laptop. And you would help the commentators out by handing them stats.
Yeah.
Craig Tiley's name is mentioned quite a bit. He did that, through us with our CompuTennis machinery and computers. The time element, once again, the in-between point time, you got, it used to be 30 seconds, 25, 20.
And you got the shot clock.
Yeah. I think of ice hockey always. Hockey, they have play-by-play, and the play-by-play person is like the announcer at a horse race, where it's just puck goes here, puck goes there, and they're off to the races. And there's one person who just, they're referred to as the color commentator. And Harry Neal, I think everyone could learn from Harry Neal. He was a former coach, so he was a color commentator. So the puck stops, a whistle blows, so the play-by-play person takes a breath, and then Harry. I remember the Richard Hernandez, who's been on our podcast, at his club in Toronto, and he's been there since the mid-'80s. There's the Moore brothers. All 3 were drafted in the NHL. All 3 went to Harvard. And Harry Neal was just great at this because he just had the, they're going to drop the puck, and he would just have seconds. And I remember him saying, if there's a Hall of Fame for tennis parents, the Moore families are definitely in.
Yeah.
So I do think that. So we on the outside, we criticize commentators. They don't have that much time to say something. But actually, then when the match is over, then they're taking some time to go through it.
Yeah.
That's where you find out there's a lack of information.
Yeah.
So with that, it'd be fun, going back to Harry Neal, write some one-liners. I've always teased and said, we should have a camp for commentators.
Commentators, yeah.
I don't think anyone would Cub, but can you imagine if you had the money to put in put a full page ad in Tennis Magazine?
Yeah.
Course for tennis commentators. But they really should have fact-based instruction. I mean, they should know. They should be educating the public, 78 feet down the line, and you go cross score at 82 and a half. If they had that type of language.
Yeah, because it's a powerful voice, Obviously, a lot of them, like you said, they're legends or famous ex-tennis players. So, when they say, hey, coming over the ball, which is just kind of a term that's known for topspin, but some people take that literal, like, oh, yeah, I got to try to come over it.
They knifed it.
Things like that. Yeah. I mean, so it can be a little misleading to people that are just learning the game or even have some time in the game. But so there are some myths out there that you hear often, and it's too bad.
No, I did this just the other day with an ice hockey game, and I had some kids, rainy day. I said, okay, let's watch this, and just write down words that apply to your sport. offense, defense, neutral.
Yeah.
It just goes on and on.
Yeah.
Assignments, working as a team. Then when the players are interviewed, it's really all the same.
Yeah.
Granted, we hear the term cliche.
Yeah.
I had him watching golf. You have the drive, you have the approach, and then you have the putt.
Yeah.
It's there's so many similarities from one sport to the next.
Shadow swings.
The ball goes the way the strings face at the contact point. The guy, the gal, he only goes to the net to shake hands and pick up balls, even lines that you've heard over and over again. But definitely, with Wimbledon on, what would be your comment on, why don't players go to the net? Why is the grass now worn out in the back of the court? It used to be called the run-up, where players would come in approximately 1, 2, 3 split step, and the grass would wear out.
Yeah, I was saying today, although it's just the early rounds, but look how nice the court is. It's so well manicured from the service line in. But that's where the stats also can be misleading, where, players are winning 67% of the net, but that doesn't mean you can go every point. I just see they have to wait off the ground for the right ball to come in on. Or if they hurt their opponent, the speed of the game is obviously one thing, but players definitely could be serving and volleying. Although there's always the argument, hey, the faster or better you serve, the faster it's coming back. Just with the equipment, the ability to return serve has improved.
Well, the information that we've assembled through our pillars, like Bill Jacobson with stats, but then also there's others, like say Carlos Goffey with Tournament Tough, the green light point.
Yeah.
That Jacobson incorporated into his system. It's 40 love. The math is on your side to take a risk.
Yeah.
How many times did they have a 40 love point? How many times did they serve and volley?
But it goes back to just saying you can't serve and volley if you can't serve and volley. So I think the skills from the service line in, they're not practiced as much as they used to be. Even the grass, we talked about that the other day, that the grass is a hybrid, that it's different than it was. Yeah,
the first year they changed it. Now Bandy and Hewitt played in the men's final.
Yeah.
And there wasn't one serve and volley point.
Yeah.
But say, for example, Sebastian Korda is on the cover of Tennis magazine. Everybody's talking about, his upside, the great American hope, have another top 10 player.
Clean, simple groundies.
Yeah, I mean, he could tweak his serve a little bit. His racket, a little bit of a regress palm up, a little bit of a hitch, but he's very, very good. But I think it comes back to the nuts and bolts is why is he good? And I read where tennis is one of the most, if not number one, the most unregulated sport in regard to coaching.
Yeah.
And to grow our game, I think, too many times there's this, one area coach fighting against another area coach. Who's the best? And there's just certain sports, like say basketball, it's okay, this is how you pass the ball. This is a chest pass. I mean, there's fundamentals that are accepted as basic law. Okay, we are going to run through the line of scrimmage as a fullback with two hands on the ball.
Yeah.
It's not going to be our style to do it with one hand on the ball.
Yeah.
If you do that 100,000 people in a stadium, 70,000 are cheering for your team and your fullback's got one hand on the ball, everybody knows.
Yeah.
And everybody should know that the better understanding you have for basics. And I do think also, too, is that the line, like say from Welby Van Horn, players improvise within a range of correctness.
Yeah.
Welby, Vic Braden, players cannot violate physical laws.
Right.
But the pros are so good that, it goes so fast. This was not a chauvinistic or a sexist comment, but years ago, tell juniors, I think you have a better chance of learning by watching a women's match. A lot of boys, slap them across the head that, I don't watch those girls play. I don't watch women's tennis. I said those girls would beat you like the bongos.
Yeah.
but it's just a little bit more noticeable as far as how they construct a point, kind of like a guard bringing a ball down slowly in a basketball game.
Yeah, we were watching Tiafoe. He had the win over Tsitsipas.
Yeah.
And it was like, great American tennis. But at the same time, we were saying, well, job just got tougher teaching the forehand. Because, you say this all the time. You cheer for the person that's going to help tennis teaching. And, whose forehand would you choose? Would you choose, Sebastian Korda's forehand, or would you choose Tiafoe's forehand? And it's like, the simplicity of Sebastian's ground strokes. It's like, you're going to bet on that forehand more than you are Tiafoe. But people don't force.
I don't know Francis Tiafoe, but I was around him for 2 weeks, and my son's Connor's practiced with him, played doubles with him. So I'm introduced to him, and he's called me Papa Smith, and he's, makes everybody feel like you've known him his whole life. I think he has no stage fright. He's great, but his forehand, it's not wrong. We say this, for example, it'd be easier to copy Jack Sock than it would be to copy Sebastian Korda, or it would be easier to copy Jack Sock than Roger Federer. I know you've said that Roger Federer said to you that I'm not that easy a player to copy.
Yeah.
But a kid just picking up a Western grip, the racket with a Western grip, and I'm just going to swing it.
Yeah, if you're young, the ball's high. You feel good to have that full Western.
Well, it's like, this is how you swing a fly swatter.
Yeah.
In the human brain, if you do it over and over and over again. But you go back from players from one era to the next, and I don't think that's done enough. I don't know why. There's so many reasons you could speculate. The appreciation of the history of the game. I think Federer has to be thanked for everything that's been done for Rod Laver, his name. But like Pete Sampras, he's going to serve and volley to Stevie Johnson's backhand, come in and volley to it. Now, Stevie Johnson, he's been in the top 30 in the world, I believe. He's such a great player. And what he did in college tennis, people say second to none. Although, like a McEnroe and a Connors, there's some players that only played college tennis for 1 year.
Yeah.
But can people pinpoint the serve and come in and volley behind it? Can they really exploit a weakness?
Yeah.
And, it's really only...
Got to have the tools.
Tiafoe's forehand, it really only has problems if people apply pressure to it. And the pressure would be time and space.
Yeah. Can people take the ball early? Can they move through an approach shot? Can they take the time away?
Yeah.
And then do they have a volley when they get there? One thing I was going to say back when we were talking about cameras and the camera angle, I spent a lot of time at the Indian Wells tournament and several pro tournaments filming with Vic, and, being able to be literally nose on the court level, but also behind the players from court level, and just being able to film. And I've got terabytes of footage from that view, but they have all these different cameras on the court. They have the net cam that goes forward. They have the ones that are, they have all these different cameras. They should get to a point, especially with computers and technology, where you could choose as the viewer which camera angle that you would like to view it. So then that would help things a lot. Just to see the trajectory, see the height, see the spin, see the footwork, see the movement, You feel like you're right there on the court. That would be really fun. It would also be fun just to turn off commentating if you didn't want it. Just have the sound. It's like, hey, let's just listen to the footwork. Let's listen to the sound of the ball. So if any executives are out there listening, we've got millions of listeners on our podcast. If any of you millions of listeners, if you're an executive for ESPN or whatever, give us the option to choose the camera angle. Thank you.
I was teaching tennis in Japan many years ago, TTC, Tennis Training Center in Chiba. And Mr. Yoshida, he's the founder. And I was asked, if there's one thing that you've seen in Japan that you could take back to the U.S., what would it be? And I said, well, graciously, there's many, many things, but you have a camera on one of your indoor courts that's directly above, and it films the entire court.
Yeah.
So you could just show from up above how kids are
Geometry.
They're not coming in split stepping 10.5 feet halfway between the service line and baseline. They're not moving diagonally.
Yeah.
And he said, well, the only thing we use that for is to see how lazy people are. But, I do think that's one thing with college tennis. College coaches have limitations. I was told recently it's gone from, and maybe I was wrong, I thought it said 21, but it's 20 hours a week. So coaches, they can't spend so much time breaking down video if they only have 20 hours to practice.
Yeah.
But getting people to study film. And I think that's, again, in other sports where, hockey's 6-on-6, but really 5 skaters against 5 skaters when there's no penalties. And it's like the telestrator, okay, what happened? Mm-hmm. And I don't think that coming back to the X's and O's, the directionals, that's really shown enough.
Yeah. Also, I put up a post the other day, just ideas for watching tennis on TV, just to chart. You could do a lot of fun things as a player, as a coach, with a group of students. And one idea was just draw a court and just, we talk about this all the time, but charting, just make a dot on the court that you've drawn of where the return lands, and just, is it a plus, minus, or IP in play? Is it weak, strong, or in play? Or you don't even have to do that. Just, make a little scatter plot, a dot where the return lands, and then you'll see how players are just returning deep and through the middle. You could even do that just on their general baseline play. Just so many little things that you could do watching tennis on TV, just to help teach.
Famous story in ice hockey, when Gretzky was a little kid, no one told him to do it, but he took a pad of paper, took a pen, drew a hockey rink, and when he watched hockey on TV, he took the pen and just went everywhere the puck went.
Yeah.
And then he said from that, he ended up having such a sixth sense on, it's not a matter of, what to do just with the puck, but when you're away from the puck.
Yeah.
I think what happens is too much in tennis, not only on TV, but again, TV is, the people with a microphone. It's not just watching, but obviously listening.
Yeah.
Is the word style. It's like, well, that's their individual style. But again, coming back to the biomechanics at the impact point, players are, about 90% the same as far as what their body segments, where the racket is at the impact point.
Yeah, I'd almost say 100. I mean, obviously someone, it's so dynamic. Not every time they're going to be in perfect position, as far as being away from the ball or late or early or whatever. But yeah, you can't fight physical laws. Like Vic used to say, you can't violate physical laws. They're going to be, everything's pretty much there,
There definitely has been change. Like just this year at Wimbledon, so they have on the show courtside interview after the match, not just Sue Barker at the end of the final. For years and years, they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Used to be, if you get on YouTube, you can go back. Players didn't have chairs to sit down.
Right. Yeah. TV's changed a lot of things.
With when they do go to commercial break, the players are sitting down, so they have that in between time. They're really forced to do that. In junior tennis, if a kid's losing, they don't sit down.
Yeah.
Usually they don't take that time out. Yeah. Senior player, they're going to show up with their own chair. They're going to make sure during the in between game time, odd games, switching one side to the next, they're going to go sit in the shade.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing too. Like I was saying earlier, if you could, as if you have a chance to see, the in between the games, those kind of things. But even if you're there in person, but I used to film just, okay, what do the players do? The rituals between games. And obviously people know with Rafael Nadal, how he lines up his water bottles, but you just see everything they have, the people that are really organized, but you've got ice, the special drinks, the bananas, all that kind of stuff. And you can see what people do between games. Some will meditate and put a towel over their head, and some, will keep tapping their toes and moving and that kind of thing. So it's just, those are things you could look for as well. Although not everybody gets to see that. Watching on TV. But
Brian Wilson with the Beach Boys. Brian Wilson, who played for Craig Tile at the University of Illinois, he's sent to work with me. Worked with him some. And this is really out of nowhere. It was many, many years ago. But he called me up during a U.S. Open match and said, what you should do is hook it up on the computer. We should do that. Is the match is being played, so people at home, they can watch the match and we could just make some comments while the match is being played.
Yeah, we've done that with some tweeting. But that's where we got to go live. Go live. We'll do it live.
Yeah, I think that it's just not critical enough. You know, we tell junior tennis players all the time, be very positive when someone compliments you, thank you, but you just got to thrive on criticism.
Yeah.
And I remember being at Indian Wells one time, and Nadal came into the locker room, and he just leaned against the wall, and where he had his arms above his head, he was just studying the stats. What was going on with the ATP players from the week before, what the updates were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that the tennis on TV, we should be so thankful to have the opportunity to watch tennis, but at the same time, tennis is a very difficult sport, and to just worldwide, but here in the U.S. to educate the American public, just like taking the serve and going outside with your 5-year-old and start playing catch, just start throwing a ball.
Yeah,
and say if you're teaching people, it's kind of like, can you throw a snowball?
Yeah.
Did you ever throw a rock?
Yeah.
And now with kids just being on a computer, just using their thumbs, a video game, to get a throwing motion.
Yeah.
And just, to emphasize, you got to become an athlete first. So, talk to people about hand-eye coordination. And I really do think it's a platform, because in tennis, we're fortunate that we basically have 4 Super Bowls. The 4 Grand Slams.
Yeah.
Everybody's pumped up. I mean, the Australian it's loved now. Before it was in December, there wasn't much money, and the best players in the world for a long, long time didn't go to Australia. And Margaret Court, who's got 62 Grand Slam titles, that just should be honored. That's so many. That's singles, mixed, and doubles.
Yeah.
But it's been broken down because how many Australians were it used to just be almost all Australians playing the Australian Open.
Yeah.
It was really almost a national championship. But all the Grand Slams are huge. And to just say, this is how you get your kids started in tennis.
Yeah.
Here in the U.S., our governing body of tennis, the USTA, a lot of great people, a lot of great causes. They get a little cute girl who tosses the ball up in the air, and the ball comes down and hits her on the head.
Yeah.
That's the commercial.
Yeah.
And just people to be taught what's the difference between palm up and palm down. The consumer or the tennis parent, their child can play tennis for 5 years.
Yeah.
The light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming right at them. They've got a palm up serve.
Yeah.
And their thing is their child's taking lessons, maybe private lessons.
Yeah. That's where commentators are not going to know. I mean, they're not going to know when someone's a little bit palm up. And then, like you said before, they're not going to be as critical. But technique, like I remember Vic back in the day commentating. I remember one point in particular, Michael Chang was playing somebody, and Michael had, he pulled the left shoulder early, so the racket didn't fall below the ball, cuts across, and he hits the net. And Vic talked about that. He was like, you pull that left side early and the racket doesn't fall, and you got to hit 212 miles an hour on a horizontal plane to get the ball over the net, and you hit the net. So the best players in the world can't violate physical laws. And you would talk about those types of things, and I think it was over a lot of people's heads. It was like, whoa, but that was like, hey, there's some information right there.
Well, I think it comes down to,
as far as technique, because
that's to have a coach in the booth. I think the Austin family, Gene Austin, worked in Vic's pro shop. I think they adored, admired, respected Vic Braden. But at one point, Vic was on a 3-man crew. Next thing, he went to a 2-man crew, and it's just a little bit ironic that just in this one setting, it varies from one match to the next. But Tracy was in, and Vic was out.
Yeah, exactly.
And Vic actually saw the humor in that because that's just the way he was wired. But I remember,
okay, bug.
I remember Vic, coming back, and Cliff Drysdale. He has been commentating forever, and obviously a world-class player, and great command of the English language, great sense of humor. But Drysdale, Vic would just say, he just be at dinner and just trying to be telling him, no, this. Yeah. But I think that's where, my point of view would be, you got to spend time in the trenches.
Yeah.
Like say, most college coaches, they grow away from teaching beginners. Even when they run their camp, they've delegated, and
sure.
They want to roll from one court to the next, and not be in the trenches trying to get people to hit the ball better.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like auto mechanics, which I know nothing about. But are you a nuts and bolts guy? I always use the analogy: can you take a lawnmower apart? Yeah, I think I could, but I don't know if I could put it back together. Put it back together.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can only wing it if you've wung it, and if you wung it, you can wing it.
Yeah.
And it's like Mary Carrillo's had a great career, and she's very, very good. What a personality! And she's gone beyond just televised tennis matches, but she just happened to be there, and they just said, "Hey, we need a body."
Yeah.
And she was just a natural.
You're in.
And she's been doing it, it's like, I don't know, she hurt her knee, and she's been doing it since she's like 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
But I can remember Vic talking about, I know we're going to talk about him in length, but Vic, Kramer realized it was so difficult to teach kids on how to hit a tennis ball. And I don't think that many commentators, I have heard Courier just recently say that's not his lane. That's not what he does. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they have people who've actually coached the game for the most part. And I'm talking about
grassroots, nuts and bolts.
Well, nuts and bolts. Now, and just to throw, and I do think that the analytics are out of line where, it's an inside joke for us how many times you're going to hear serve +1 or the first 4 shots.
Yeah.
And are really, 12 and under players going to say that? No, Craig O'Shaughnessy, I've met him a couple times. I don't really know him either, but he played college tennis with someone that I coached way back when I was not that old, Scott Wittenberg. They played college tennis together. Then Craig worked for Kim Wittenberg. And, so we all have backgrounds with, but O'Shaughnessy, who was a very good college player, he certainly knows that when you're teaching 10-year-olds,
yeah,
they shouldn't be thinking it's the first 4 shots, other than it's just slap city.
Slap city, yeah.
And, but when a kid hears serve +1 over and over again, you see these kids arching their back, tossing way over their head, and they hit a little bit of kick. The person on the other side perhaps hits short, and then the kid's going to just tee off with a beyond Western grip, as Bud Collins used to call it. It's so far beyond. It's the Hawaiian grip.
Yeah. No, just basic geometry, like you said too, just to know, okay, you got to take those stats, but like you say, the real stats, grip, swing, body, but also just, okay, how about when somebody changes the angle of a shot, if they miss, or just talking about the zones of the court a little bit more, defensive, neutral, offensive, those types of things. Like you said, with other sports, people talk about defense, offense, short ball range, those kinds of basic concepts that would be great to hear to help.
Yeah, and I guess they probably can't, that we wouldn't really know being outsiders, but like say Paul Wardlaw's book on directionals, mm-hmm. or even there's a YouTube video.
Yeah.
And just say, and listeners at home, you could go to YouTube and because as the commentator is not going to really be able to go through directionals. They could
as far as time goes.
Yeah, not in between points, but when they're in between matches. And I'm an amateur writer, but I've been a professional writer where I'm at the Open, I'm at various tournaments because I'm writing for a magazine, and people want to listen to what the players have to say. We tell kids, don't just listen for the courtside soundbite, is listen to the interview.
Yeah, that's nice when they have the transcripts as well, so you can go back and read them.
I think that, the Olympics are coming up. I was talking to Matt Clure earlier. One thing about the Olympics, the behind the scenes, when they go back, they take a few minutes and they go back. They've gone to the athlete's hometown and they show where they've trained and what they've been doing, and they go through the backstory or their progression. That all takes, whatever the term might be, research. It takes time. To do that, but I do think that there's too much. When the match is over, what did you think? What did you think? And the prophet of the obvious, and with say Roger Federer, I guess there's a time and place for a documentary, but I always say that this gentleman Adolf Kavoski, who taught him, he was his first coach, you think he would be like, okay, what did you do?
Yeah.
And Redford, his nickname was Seppi, but to actually have
little background story on each player.
Yeah, the thing with Nadal having a two-handed forehand when he was younger.
Yeah.
I think what happens is that too many times teaching pros, the 25-year-old, 26-year-old who's teaching the so-called modern game, they're copying the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's okay. They're watching Nadal and Federer and trying to interpret what they're doing. And,
they've got the Ferrari paint job, but they don't have the engine.
Yeah. What was the process? What was the pathway?
Yeah.
But, obviously the stories they're covering are, okay, what's the story of the match? Well, we just watched the match. And then right afterwards, again, that would, like a television producer, well, that's not so easily done. Of course, and they have a lot of time with the Olympics. Okay, they're just doing the trials now. So, okay, now the American team is set.
Yeah.
So they have a month to prepare. Okay, who's going to be, who's the high jumper, who's the pole vaulter, do some homework on that.
Yeah. It'd be nice to get more insights on some of the background. No, for me, tennis on TV, like you said, it's awesome we have it, and now it's available basically on your cell phone. My wish would be to be able to see all the different kind of angles. I think would be very educational just for the viewer.
No, also, maybe we could just close on, like, say, Sebastian Korda. Why is everybody talking about him? They say, okay, he's got such a clean game. Well, why is it so clean?
Yeah.
Or the fact that he played other sports. And just
the fact that everybody in this family is a professional athlete, pretty much successfully.
Just how did he start? And there's no substitute for a good beginning.
Yeah.
And people I think will look at, well, he's 6'5", great genetics, had every opportunity, growing up in Florida. But I do think that would be my one point is. What a platform to educate in this country, educate the American public on, try to grow the game through TV. And I do think that, you hear all the time, well, there'd be another, maybe not a boom, but tennis would perhaps be shot in the arm if we have a great player on the men's side.
Yeah.
We certainly have had Venus and Serena for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the story behind the story.
Yep. Well,
I think one last thing, targets.
Yeah. I was talking about targets.
Just what are the targets? Target tennis.
Yeah.
And, they think, okay, this is where the play, and they can do that.
Yeah, they have all the graphics. I mean, they do that every once in a while.
Yeah, and really, if you get a kid just to draw a diagram of a tennis court, and you get one of those pens, you just click it, red and blue.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a lot of red if that's what you do with the unforced errors. And I guess now in education, they say don't use red. Don't let the kid's paper look like you had a nosebleed on it. So a kid makes a cluster of errors, forehand ground stroke, and you just draw a dot from where they hit the ball to where the ball went.
Yeah.
And that's really what they're doing on TV.
Yeah.
But why did the ball go there? It looks like they're forehand. It looks like they're
pointed there.
It looks like they're throwing a discus.
Yeah.
And but at home, not to beat the players up. Obviously, they're great players. They're playing at Wimbledon, but the margins between winning and losing are so slim. So you could think, all right, here are the targets, and tennis parents, I don't think they should really go out and teach their kids how to hit a ball unless they know how to hit a ball. But if they could put the targets, we put 5 targets on the court.
Yeah.
3.5 feet in from each sideline baseline. So baseline's 27 feet. So now you got 20 feet up the middle.
Yeah.
But then we put a center mark. That comes from Braden. Braden took a cone, put it 5 feet inside the baseline.
Yeah.
And said to Billie Jean King, if you could hit every shot here, how would you do? She thought about it for a minute. She said, you would never lose.
Yeah.
So the KID method, KID, keep it deep. So we tell people you're on the right side of the net. You're on the right side of the court. Hit on the right side of the net. See those 2 cones? Your parents who just dropped you off here, they could drive their car right between those 2 cones.
Yeah.
So then the language, path of the racket, path of the target.
Yeah.
So I tell people when I'm sitting with them watching tennis, watch how the pros just hit up the middle.
Yeah.
It's nothing fancy. They're just hitting up the middle. So you wait for them, you're in the rally, wait for them to miss, hit short, change the direction of the ball.
Yeah.
That's what you do in the rally. You're not trying to paint the lines, not trying to blast a winner. So you get the short ball. Then you make the short ball, you go to the net, you do the math. And if you win 2 out of 3 consecutively, over and over we say this.
6-0.
Broken record.
Yeah.
So 2 out of 3, 4 out of 6, 8 out of 12, 16 out of 24, you win 6-0, 6-0. But then, so you go out and take 6 balls, cross-court forehand, cross-court backhand.
Yeah.
Downline approach shot. I like how you have them hit volleys deep, so it'll help them with their mechanics. But when we're teaching strategy,
first volley deep.
But when we're teaching initially, is it play your approach shot, get in like you've set the point up for 1 volley, and you're feeding 30 miles an hour, courtesy feed. Here it comes, and you feed the forehand volley, and now the service box it's 13.5 wide, 21 long. Can you hit the ball in the living room?
Yeah.
And they can't. So again, back the strings go to the target, but then to show where the pros do it and say, just 1 quick minute. When you're at home, in America, we're very spoiled with all sorts of public courts. Get a ball hopper, mom and dad. I mean, you can learn to turn, feed a forehand. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
You don't have to be paying a pro. It's not a conspiracy. We got to pay a pro $100 an hour. But that would be a mission or a vision of what we're trying to do with the GreatBase is you should be able to go out with a ball hopper and feed some balls.
Yeah.
So target tennis. The people on TV, I think if they had someone on the team who really had taught tennis, it's like tennis decisions on tennis teaching should not be made by people who are not teaching tennis. And again, through TV, I think that'd be a very good platform to help to educate. It is entertaining. but it's not educational enough.
Yeah, I agree. Well, folks, hope you've enjoyed this episode of the GreatBase Tennis Podcast.
Yeah, we're at 46. We're gonna have a few more to end up at 52. Have a review at then 52. We're gonna do Uncle Vic for I think 3 sessions.
Yep.
And then we have 2 more.
Yeah. Right now, Wimbledon's going on. 2021. Enjoy Wimbledon, and hopefully this gave you some ideas on what you can do. You can do some charting. You can do some observation. You know.
Yeah, yesterday
make a
when I was watching
learning session out of it with your players.
I think everybody watched it a little bit over the weekend. They showed the famous match between Federer and Sampras.
Yeah.
And Federer's serve. What do you say? A few things about that. His serve's definitely changed a little bit.
It's a little more straight up. Toss was a little higher, a little more to the left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The riddle. Things that people could remember. Does the racket find the toss, or does the toss find the racket?
Yeah. I asked him actually years after that at Indian Wells, hey, your toss has changed a little bit. It's lower, more to the right. Is that something you've been working on? He said, no, it's just, it's just the evolution of the game. Things evolve. And I think that's, for the most part, what happens with players. They evolve. Every once in a while, someone comes along, like a Chilich, and gets a little information. It's like, oh, okay. A little lower to the right.
Yeah, Chilich worked with Goran Ivanisevic, and he said, serve like me.
Yeah, exactly.
And but I remember listening to Roger. They were asking about Chilich, and he said, before or after he changed his serve.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And, I think that's where
players know.
Just does that just jump out at you? And like, what did he change?
Yeah.
But, just mom and dad to go out and play catch with your kid, say, okay, the word pitcher method, the volley is like catching the ball. Can you just catch? Then can you throw?
Yeah.
So anyway, tennis on TV tennis.
Yep.
It's great that we don't have tape delayed matches though.
That is nice.
In the tennis channel, 24/7. It's interesting. The tennis channel, at first they showed programming.
Yeah.
Now it seems like it's 100% just showing matches.
Yeah, which is nice. Back in the day, it was MTV. You actually had music videos all the time, and then they started getting into shows and the real world. And
I've never watched MTV.
Yeah, I knew it. That explains a lot.
But with I liked it when they had like Tom Avery, he has a website, and I saw this. He had a segment. He had several. I don't know, like a six lesson series on.
Yeah,
and
he went through Vic's Academy, I think.
Yeah, I thought he had worked for Vic. He said, no, I just went through his 5-day program.
Yeah.
And he's very close when it comes down, and I think that's a great thing. If people are close to understanding Vic Braden, they're way, way better than the industry norm.
Agreed. And stay tuned for our episodes on Vic coming up here in the next few weeks.
Howard Cosell, being a prophet of the obvious. You can always turn the volume down.
Lessons.
You can always turn the volume down with commentators. But I think when people say that, I'd rather still listen to what they have to say. Because, you can have a filtering system. You're going to definitely hear a couple pearls.
Yeah.
But also, if you've studied technique, you're going to say, no, that's not true. That's not true.
Yep.
And that's very common when you, top players, they don't say what they do or do what they say.
Yeah.
But that's who's hired too. I mean, straight across the board, the people that are in the booth are people that played the game. Though the people supporting them, like say a Chris Fowler, but actually I think he steps out of line, and not the and certainly we're not the ones to say put him in line, but it's like, is he really talking about X's and O's and nuts and bolts? But typically that's just That's the person who's just going to help the smoothness of the production.
Yeah. They've been trained.
Keep the sales up and keep it going. They're not really so much there for the tennis commentary.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Find us online, GreatBaseTennis.com. On social media at GreatBase Tennis. We're putting out all kinds of free content every day. Appreciate you spreading the word about this podcast or other information. We're trying to help tennis teaching. You know, help us out. Scratch our back. You know? Anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Anything left to say, Smith? You got any last comments?
You should not try to hit TV shots. Basic shots win the match.
This episode was sponsored by Sugar-Free Red Bull, by the way.
Basic shots win the match. The fancy shots make the highlight reel. I will go up and ask a kid, they just tried this outrageous shot. And says, are you playing Serena today? Who's that on the other side?
Yeah.
Be brilliant with basics, Vince Lombardi. I'm over and out.
Like it. See you in the next one, everybody. Thanks for listening. Adios, amigos.